We are live with the podcast for all seasons. This is Josh Mundy, and tonight is Season 2, Episode 11, and with us is a very special guest. Sara Richard is a comic book artist, and currently working on My Little Pony. And she's also done some recent work for DC. We met her recently at Comic-Con in Motor City Comic-Con, that is, in Detroit. And she is going to talk shop with us tonight. We're pretty excited to have her on. She's one of our biggest guests to date. I'm going to let Eric introduce the rest of the show and get us started. Eric, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, Josh. I'm doing well, and hi to all of our listeners. This is Eric Joseph. I guess from now on, my credentials are getting a little lengthy, so I'll just speak those near the end of the episode when we plug our sites, because after 40-some episodes, I'm just now noticing that I sound like Troy McClure when I do this. So, anyway, on with our guest. We've been teasing more well-known comic book artists in the past few episodes, and we first met Sara Richard back in May at Motor City Comic-Con, as Josh said, and we decided to bring her on around the time when the DC Justice League Tarot cards were going to launch. We were there Saturday and Sunday that weekend, and we just looked at our press passes and realized that, hey, someone at the con actually drew that little picture of Spider-Man that was on them, and we decided to track down the artist and get her signature on it, and that's when we met Sara, and we'd heard about her work with My Little Pony, and we got to know her for a bit, and we're very impressed by her work, and thought she was a great person, and to eventually bring her on the show timed with that release, as we said earlier. So without further ado, introduce yourself, Sara Richard.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. I'm Sara Richard, comic book artist, mostly cover artist. Eisner nominated for Kitty and Dino through Yen Press, which is my kids' book. I'm mostly working with IDW right now. I've got, a few blogs. One is a fashion blog that's kind of like high fashion cosplay designs, which I will totally get back to doing at some point. But yeah, it's all on my website. Other than that, make the arts, I guess.
The arts.
The arts.
And we will say, the art of Sara Richard, not to be confused with the ancient Sun Tzu text of the same title.
That's right. That's right. So, Sara, you are currently, we were talking a little bit before the show, and you are currently doing covers and just did one today on My Little Pony. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Right now a lot of covers for My Little Pony. I just handed one in. It's usually a lot of subscription, usually variant covers that I do, and IDW is super cool about letting me kind of make everything super swirly and really surprisingly sometimes not on model, which is really strange when I have to do a project that is super strict on model, but I love it. They're super cool, and they totally get like styles, like different artist styles, and I think that's like contributing to their success, really. But anyway, rambling. My Little Pony's been awesome. It did the Sombra and Hope series arc that's kind of coming out right now. I did I did the variant covers for that arc, and it's cool. They all kind of go together. They all kind of have the same color scheme, and they kind of tie each other together, I guess. But yeah, that was the ones that are coming out right now anyway. And the My Little Pony Art is Magic book is coming out soon, I believe. Yeah, very soon actually. So that's got a bunch of artists in it, a lot of the interior artists, a lot of the cover artists. We all did a section, took our favorite pony, and did a new pinup for it. So that's coming out really soon too, and that's going to be really, really cool.
We probably asked you this at Motor City Comic-Con, but you mentioned, you said, draw your favorite pony, so now I have to ask you who your favorite pony is.
Totally Rainbow Dash.
Rainbow Dash.
Totally.
So me and Eric are admittedly not bronies in any way, shape, or form.
But yeah, having you on the show, people would ask like, "Hey, why aren't they talking about My Little Pony?" So we have to do it for the fans, really.
Yeah, there are quite a few fans, as we talked about at Motor City Comic Con.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I love how it's received, and I love now that it's been going for so long, and Agnes Garboska put me as a pony in one of the issues, and it was super cool because I just got back from Rhode Island Comic Con this weekend, and some girl drew my pony and gave me a picture of it, and I tagged it in my Instagram so people can check it out there. But I'm still thinking of a name for the pony, but she's cute. She's kind of like a grown-up Scootaloo, which bronies will understand what that means. So.
One thing I was going to ask about your art, you have a very distinct style. The best adjective I could use to describe it is otherworldly. But when you draw a comic book that's especially used to tie into an animated series and pop media line, you have to kind of conform to the styles so it doesn't quite throw off fans of the cartoon. But like I said, especially, I guess it's more apparent when I see pictures you draw for commissions, but looking at your artwork for My Little Pony, it still has that Sara Richard style. Do you find it, is there any kind of a challenge involved trying to conform to a set style while still making it your own?
I guess the thing I kind of rely on to keep my style coming through is, I guess the colors and the shading and the anytime I get to put a sky into something or put like smoke or mist into it, I like to keep everything looking like it's kind of made out of air. Does that sound really weird? You know what I mean? Like I've
noticed that.
Yeah, like I don't know. I hang glide, and I like anything to do with flying, and like just airbender, I guess, is what I am. So, yeah, I don't know. I just like everything to stay really light and airy and transparent, and everything I do is like built up in layers, so it's all hand painted too, which I guess helps keep that kind of translucent quality for a lot of stuff. But it does get kind of hard sometimes to keep to the model. My Little Pony I haven't had too much trouble with because they're very simplistic, so you can add more to them than trying to dial back, I guess. And the one thing that I kind of ran into a lot of problems with was I did I illustrated an 8-page story for How to Train Your Dragon. It's in issue 5, and it's a story about Astrid and Stormfly and a bunch of smothering smoke breaths, and I kind of drew it like how I would draw them, and then got a ton of changes back because it wasn't like, right on model. So that was kind of a challenge, but it was really interesting to see how certain companies really keep you on track with some like a chin line being like a centimeter to the left than it is, to the right. And
so explain for people who aren't as familiar with some of the art lingo. When you say on model, tell fans what exactly that means that you have to conform to.
Oh yeah, totally. So that's like if I were to draw, like Rainbow Dash or whatever. Like on model would be like what you see in the show, and that's like what you would see turnarounds of. Like an animator would draw like the front side, maybe 3/4 view of a character, and like you would have to stick pretty close to those proportions and those colors and expressions. So being on model is pretty much drawing that character as everybody knows it, like from a show or from a comic. So when you go off model, like as long as you keep it recognizable, a lot of people can still get into what you're doing, but if you go too off model, then it becomes unrecognizable. So
yeah, you don't want to do Frank Miller's Rainbow Dash.
Oh no. But I do actually have a Rainbow Dash by James O'Barr, which is amazing. So that's one of my treasured things from conventions. But
So when you do your covers, you said that you have a little bit more of that open concept that allows you to a little bit more to go off model. You said.
Yeah, it seems like they're pretty cool with me, like putting swirls and sparkles and junk everywhere I want to. So, I try to keep all the proportions pretty much on track. But because I hand paint it, like I can't just pick and choose from a color chart or like in Photoshop, like the color guide for that specific pony. Like I have to mix my own color, or like Pinkie Pie has a certain type of pink for her like body and a different type of pink for her hair. So I try to get it as close as I can. But there is a kind of a little bit of wiggle room that I get to play with. Yeah, and I haven't had too much color correcting that I've had to do, so it's been pretty cool. It hasn't been too stressful, which is nice. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be doing it. But, yeah.
How long does the process usually take for just a cover that you make?
Usually I work pretty quick. I would say if I were to just sit down and do something start to finish, it's usually it's less than a week. It's like 2 days maybe to get some thumbnails, to getting into working on the final project. But I have to do thumbnails and then send those to the editor, and they kind of okay those before I start, working on the real piece, which I do like a pencil sketch for and scan that in. And the only digital I actually do is like if I have to tweak some lines or resize something. So I'll do that to the pencil sketch, and then I'll print it back out and transfer that printout at the actual size I'm going to paint it at to like Canson paper or illustration board using graphite paper. So it goes back to being hand drawn and traditionally mediated, I guess. After that, and then yeah, I just paint it, scan that, send it back in, and usually depending on how complicated the cover is, it really hasn't taken more than like 3 days, I guess. 3 or 4 days, I guess, is generally what I stick to. So, but I work like all day. Like I am a glutton for punishment. I'll just sit there and keep working and work on my tendinitis. So.
So when you actually are crafting pretty much what you were talking about, crafting these covers over this 3-day period, do you? I've seen some artists, for example. I think we met. I'm sure Eric could name them off the top of his head. He's got a much more eidetic memory. Like Ethan Van Sciver is a pretty popular artist that we've met at various cons before, and I've seen in his sketchbook, where he completely ends up saying this concept doesn't work. It's a complete scrap. How often do you find yourself completely reworking an existing idea into something completely different?
Oh, like all the time. Like I will do super simplistic thumbnails that like really only I can decipher because it's just a bunch of like lines and circles and little tiny abbreviated notes, and I'll kind of let that maybe sit. If I have enough wiggle room, I'll let an idea kind of sit overnight and look at it the next day. But I kind of think there's like potential in everything. Not everything's going to be compositionally fantastic. So you kind of just move things around. The earlier you can get working on something, the more time you have to kind of let it steep, I guess. But I'm finding some old sketchbooks I've had and like little sketches in that I'm actually thinking about reworking into some illustrations, soon. So you never know. Like I don't feel like any sketch is really a complete waste. I mean, either you learn from it and you use it to play off of into another kind of composition, or you just put it away for a little while and look at it with fresh eyes in a bit. So, but everybody's different, so.
So one of the recent things that you have worked on, and we wanted to talk about on this show specifically because we tend to do more DC-related things, is DC has a Justice League tarot card set. And I've looked at the art. There's some really awesome pieces in there. I don't know that all of them have been published as far as the picture art, but on DC's website and several other I've seen, I'd say that my favorite so far has to be the Ra's al Ghul, I think it's the Hierophant, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it took me a while to pronounce that, too.
So
Anyone like me who was a Marilyn Manson fan in the 90s knows how to pronounce it.
So can you talk a little bit about not only the process, but I saw in an article that they had approached you at San Diego Comic-Con to do the set. So obviously they enjoyed your art, but how did that entire process work? Because I have to imagine it's a pretty complicated thing to...
Yeah, how did it come about, too? Because, having been mostly an IDW artist as well.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, San Diego, yeah, is where I met the guys that brought it up. And sorry, there's like sirens going on outside. Yeah, I'd seen them a couple years at San Diego. One year they're like, look, we love your art, but there's nothing that we feel like you can fit into right now, but we're going to keep you in mind. There should be a project coming up soon. Just stay tuned. And it's like, all right, cool. So kept that in mind. The next San Diego I went to, they're like, okay, we've got it. Do you want to do a tarot card set? And, I said a lot of expletives in a very well way, in a very happy, joyous way. And I was like, heck yeah, totally do. So they're like, all right, we're going to start, getting a list together. You come up with the list as well of who you think would fit where in the cards. And so I came up with a list. I did the best research I could, in terms of like what the cards meant, and then, different DC characters, because I kind of grew up more with Marvel and X-Men, and I do love DC too, but I'm not as knowledgeable as some of like the super background characters, but I do know a lot now. And anyway, so I came up with a list of all 78 cards, and then the guys at DC came up with a list, and we kind of put them together. And some of the cards I ended up kind of moving around, and they were super awesome with letting me make a case for why, like a Stargirl should be this card instead of this card, and why I think, Dr. Manhattan should be in there at all. And some of the Watchmen characters they weren't sure with right away, but they're like, yeah, we can put a couple in there. I couldn't do any Vertigo characters or any Sandman characters actually, because they already have.
You were into sorry if I interrupted. How obscure, like how deep into the well did you go for some characters? Because you got your Batman, your Green Lantern, your Joker, but like you just brought up Watchmen. But what's the most off the wall character you got to use in that deck?
I mean, so my obscure character is probably going to be not as obscure as a character you might know, just because it was these characters I was learning for the first time, and I was like, I have no idea this guy even existed. But they showed it on one of the previews anyway, but like Captain Boomerang's in there, and I had no idea who he was.
That's actually one of my favorite ones that I've seen.
Yeah. That one was really funny because I tried to make him giving the bird, like with the boomerang that he was holding, and they're like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, all right.
Well, you're get to know him soon because he's going to be in the Suicide Squad movie.
Yeah. So
he's going to be getting popular. I'd say that the Spectre, granted he's an old character, but he's definitely not one of their most popular, and right. I really enjoyed that art on that card. And then the Ra's al Ghul one he looks so crazy. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, Sarah, you need to look at some of my recent photos. I kind of did away with the look recently, but like if you see it on Facebook, I had the Ra's al Ghul beard going for a few months.
Ra's al Ghul beard.
I actually did. But yeah, I'm not even like a tarot card guy, but I plan on picking up the set because it's just, like I said, it has that otherworldly feel to it, and you definitely are the artist for the project, and it just looks so cool because I think some of the reveals they had this week, I think Crave Online was the one who did some of the screenshots, and then I did not get to watch the Comic Vine unboxing, but that was up today. But yeah, I plan on getting the set. And I want you to sign all 78 cards.
Oh my god.
I'm not going to do that. Maybe just sign the box or something.
If you bring me a bottle of wine, I will consider it.
I don't think they're going to let me in.
That could be arranged. I definitely have a wife who works at a world market, and I have lots of access to copious amounts of wine.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean,
well, then again, we don't report in through the main entrance anyway at cons, so.
That's true. We might be able to sneak a bottle in or something like that.
Just say it's like your microphone in the bottle.
The microphone case?
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I'm super stoked. Like, I watched the Comic Vine video today. A lot of these things I have no idea they're coming out until somebody like tags me on Twitter or Facebook, so it's kind of cool to check that out today. But yeah, there's like Hawk and Dove I think they showed today too in there, and I didn't know anything about Hawk and Dove, so now I do, which is cool. And I'm trying to think of what they showed and what I can't like say. But yeah, watch the Comic Vine too, and there's a bunch. They show a bunch in that video. They don't show them all, but he definitely goes through. And even in the video, the guy's like, I don't even know how to use tarot. Like, you can look online and find different, you know, how to set them up and what each card means, but they are pretty much based off of like the traditional Rider-Waite deck. And I used a lot of those cards to kind of put different little hidden things into each of the cards, like the Catwoman one's the Priestess, and in the Rider-Waite actual card, there's like a ruby in there, there's an owl, there's a scroll, so I made like the scroll Catwoman's blueprints, and then like she has a bag full of jewels, so I had like her holding a ruby, and like there's an owl statue in there. So there's like a bunch of stuff, you know, calling from the original cards and sort of twisted in a way to fit that character that goes into that card. Like Poison Ivy has a bunch of pomegranates, just because the like in the tree above her, because in the gosh, I'm like getting all the cards confused. But in her card anyway, in the Rider-Waite set has pomegranates in there. So everything's, you know, trying to call back to the, you know, original cards. But yeah, it's cool. Like DC was super awesome with letting me compose each card. I really got a few comments on just like maybe make this person not look so mean, maybe make them in this costume, and that was really the extent of it. They let me kind of
okay, not look so mean. I have to ask about that.
Yeah. Oh, not look so mean.
Like
sorry.
Dark Side or something. Don't make them look so evil.
Well, I think the one I remember is there's like Flash in there, and I made him looking more like I'm a stab you than like I'm running fast. So.
Yeah, there's a nice Zoom one I saw that I really like that one as well. Professor Zoom is the, you know, reverse Flash or however you want to refer to him.
Yeah, he was pretty fun to do. That one, for me, drawing like big muscly dudes is kind of tricky, and trying to make that in action is even more tricky. So I'm kind of happy how he came out. I think I just opened my brain to the world of better artists, and stuff flowed in and made that happen way better than if I overthought it. So yeah, he's a pretty cool card. Pretty stoked about that one. But,
so I've seen the release date everywhere as a generic November. Do you know what?
25th, actually, right?
Oh, it is 25th. I tried to find it online before the show, and I just had trouble finding a specific date.
I only found it because that's what Amazon said for DC Direct. Because I had no idea. I was asking too, and they're like,
oh, well, that's what I've been told too.
Find out on Amazon. You could find out everything.
I know.
We're I'm not going to give it away too much, but on Dark Knight News, later this month, we're posting our holiday gift guide, and your tarot cards are included.
Hey, thank you. Awesome.
Dun, 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 dun.
I know some girls who are into tarot, and I've already recommended it for them.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard the pre-sales have been going pretty well, and yeah, I'm just so stoked for it. I was kind of worried. I'm like, oh, I hope this is a thing. You know, this would be really cool to get my art out there through this, and it's a really fun project, and I worked my ass off on it. So
it's quite unique. I mean, I've seen that they have done, you know, like a Vertigo tarot set, so I could understand maybe why they didn't want DC didn't want a specific you to use Vertigo characters, seeing as how they had their own one. I believe there was maybe, it might have been a few years ago now, but there was a Sandman or just a generic Vertigo set that came out. But so Rainbow Dash, favorite pony. What was your favorite? What was your favorite card you worked on?
Favorite cover? Oh man, I'm really stoked with the one that I just handed in the other day. I can't really talk about it, but it's definitely very different, and I got to try and make it look like it was painted on wood. So that's kind of neat. But that's all I can say about that. My other favorite, so my other favorite one, man, I've just done so many. I'm really excited about what's coming out in the art book, the pinup I did for that. It's really cool. It's like just Rainbow Dash, and she's kind of flying around a lightning bolt, and it was really fun to kind of play with all the colors in that. But I guess the one that really stands out, I did like Pinkie Pie as kind of like the Karate Kid, like in one of my very, very first covers I ever did. And
okay, yeah, I saw that art. That actually is pretty funny.
Thanks.
Little image.
Thank you. Yeah, it was when I first started. I did a variant covers or retail exclusive covers for Double Midnight Comics in New Hampshire. When I lived back in New Hampshire, that was my hometown comic store. So that's where I got started, was doing variant covers for them, and then kind of took off from there. So I guess those are always going to be special ones. Yeah.
Right. The first time's always special, as it were.
Exactly.
So you said you're not a really big DC fan, or not necessarily a DC fan, but more familiar with those characters. What was your favorite tarot card that you did, or character that you had to draw for the set?
Man. I'm trying to think of all the ones I did first because I wanted to do them right away.
And which ones you can reveal, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you saw it, or they showed it already, but the Poison Ivy one was one of my favorites just because I really like doing, like organic kind of lines, and it just fits all that so well. Like, I like painting women, like just, real soft colors and lines, and that one was really, really fun to do, and put a lot of gold in it, and yeah, just really organic lines. So that one was really good to do, or really fun to do. Really liked the Stargirl, was pretty fun. I tried to make her look real badass and control, I guess. And man, there's I'm totally blanking. I'm trying to go through.
It's not a trick question. It's completely at your objective discretion.
Yeah, I think Harley too. Harley was the very first card that I worked on, so that one's gonna be my pioneer. And I love Harley too, so she was really fun to do. The Joker one was super fun too. So
it's pretty classic Harley. I actually really like the Penguin done. Are you familiar with the artist who worked on the Lemony Snicket series?
Oh, I know the art. I don't know the name though.
Whose name is I'm totally blanking on it. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of some of that, the pastels and charcoals and such of his art, which I really, really enjoy, and I know a lot of people like his art. But specifically some of the crazier ones, like your Joker and Penguin ones, are very reminiscent of that.
Oh, thanks.
Did you have to adhere to more New 52 interpretations of characters, or classic ones, or was that also pretty open-ended?
It was pretty open-ended. I know there's Star Sapphire. They wanted a certain costume for her, and she's like one of the Queen cards. So she was the only one that they really had a note on which costume to use. But it was pretty fun. Like Megan Wallace, is that? Shoot, I'm blanking on her name. Anyway, like certain variations of different characters, they were super open on what costume I used. Like Harley, they were cool with me using more of that costume than like the more revealing costumes. I'm always a fan of older Harley, so they were cool with letting me use that, and I was really excited about that. Yeah, nothing too crazy. No real like you have to use this certain costume now, other than that one. Yeah. Sorry, rambly answer.
No, you answered the question. Yeah, it's hard to pick. I mean, like we've talked about amongst ourselves, which one of our episodes is the favorite, and compiling a list or something like that, or favorite articles Eric's done, and it's always hard to pick from the things that you enjoy, because you might enjoy all of them, but
right. You'll think of it like later at like 2 o'clock in the morning and be like, crap, that was the one I wanted to say. So I'm expecting that to happen.
So on the list of things that we wanted to cover, one of the things that we kind of skipped right over in the beginning of the episode was we wanted to get a little like a background from you. So you said that you had done a lot of art and you started doing variant covers. Why don't you give us a little bit of like how you got into the business?
Oh yeah, totally. So I went to art school. I went to Columbus College of Art and Design, and I thought I wanted to do traditional animation, and then realized I didn't have the patience for it at all. But it was really cool to see, how animators will be able to make a figure look in motion by just a couple lines here and there, and squash and stretch is one of the basic animation principles. So that really helps, especially with ponies, because they look like they're made out of Play-Doh anyway. So it's nice to like give them a little bit of life by making one leg a little bit more squishier to make it look like they're running a certain direction. Anyway, learning animator techniques really helps with making illustrations look more fluid and more alive. And so once I realized I didn't want to do 2D animation, I'm not a big fan of computers, so I didn't want to go into 3D animation. And by the time I changed my mind, I could get into video, because it was still under the media studies major. So did video, but I also started going into more illustration classes, and one of them was 3D illustration classes. And that was like sculptures and maquettes. And turns out that right before I graduated, they had a Hasbro workshop where a couple managers from Hasbro came and showed us how they make things, and make toys pretty much, and the waxes they use and the ball joints they use. And they're like, all right, you make a action figure, we'll come back, we'll judge it, and we'll give somebody an internship. So they gave like the parameters that it has to be like 6 inches tall and at least 4 points of articulation. So I know this is what I really wanted to do. I'm like, I don't want to do video, I don't want to do animation, like this is my only chance to do something art-wise, or else I'm super screwed. And so just gave it my all, ended up doing this weird harpy figure that had 24 points of articulation. And so they came back and they were like, all right, cool, judged it. A few weeks later, I ended up getting a temp position because I was graduating. So they gave the internship to a student behind me, and then we went and worked at Hasbro for a few years, and that was super cool, and kind of got to work with like Star Wars and Marvel, and sculpted one My Little Pony concept and one Little Pet Shop concept, and pretty much it was just a lot of G.I. Joes and some Jurassic Park stuff that'll never see the light of day, which makes me super sad. But anyway, so from that,
super sad.
I know, they were super cool. It's gonna be, you can kind of find them on Google if you type in like new Stegosaurus and new Carnotaurus Hasbro. You'll find like the prototypes in bags in like the factory, I think. But yeah, they might not be coming out, which really sucks. Anyway, so yeah, worked at Hasbro. Started doing some conventions on the side. I had a friend who was like, you can draw, superheroes. Why not try to do this? And so I did like Boston Comic Con years and years and years ago when it was still in a basement. Now it's huge. It's a really big convention now. But had a little tiny table. Started working on a style that I was very Art Nouveau centric and kind of all over the place, and just kept working from there, and just got feedback from people, and everybody was super supportive. And I'm like, I think I like this. I can do this more on my terms, more my style, and I feel like I have more of a voice with this. Because Hasbro, it's like, it was cool to sculpt, but it was based on the designer's input and direction, and it's like you really couldn't stray too far from being on model. Word again. Yeah, being able to do my own illustrations at conventions was great. And I did a free comic book day at Double Midnight Comics, and got to know those guys a little more. And they're like, hey, there's this thing called a retail exclusive through IDW for My Little Pony, this new comic that they're trying out. And so yeah, just went from there. It was really cool. Did more shows, did more pony covers. That kind of snowballed in the best way into bigger projects and other properties that IDW has. And conventions are great too, because editors walk around. C2E2 randomly met an editor who wanted to do a kid's book about a cat and a dinosaur, and I had a bunch of dinosaur and cat art, and so did this kid's book that ended up getting nominated for an Eisner. So kind of crazy. You just never know. It's the more you put yourself out there, the more chances you have to.
So you just happen to have a bunch of dinosaur and cat art just laying around, and this guy's like, I'm really looking for dinosaur and cat art.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. Like this guy comes up and he's like, this is kind of perfect. I have an editor at Yen Press who's trying to put together a kid's book of a cat and a dinosaur. So I just gave him my sketchbook because at that point it's just like, please take this, please hopefully give me work, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I got contacted back, and you can get it. It's called Kitty and Dino. You can get it at local comic stores or on Amazon, and it's super cute. It's like about a cat raising a baby T-Rex. Nobody gets eaten. It's like one of the things I get asked all the time. It's a very happy kid's book. It's cute.
Yeah, kids' books don't tend to have high body counts in them.
Yeah.
So maybe if they ever made Saturday Night Live's Laser Cats into a comic book, you're the person to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's like I love dark books, though, that are supposed to be like a kid's book. Like Edward Gorey's got, like, the Gashly Crumb Tinies, which is totally full of, kids being off in the worst way, but it's, like, presented like a kid's book. But it's creepy. Like, that's the whole thing. It's this spooky kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of thing.
Right. I mean, granted, Lord of the Flies was technically not a child's book, but it was full of children. You can always get some fun, dark stuff out of kids' work.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, one example was, I don't know if you read these as a kid, Sarah. You remember the scary stories to tell in the dark?
Those haunt my dreams till this day. Yeah, I totally do. And those were so addictive because they scared the crap out of me. Like they looked like they were
so graphic for kids, and like now they've changed the artwork from what we had. Yeah, they made the artwork less horrifying for today's kids.
And that's why this generation, I won't go on a rant. I think we all became better adults because we were terrified as children by, creepy, gooey, decomposing bodies in a kid book.
Yeah.
And Ren and Stimpy. I also attribute it to that. So.
Yeah, I remember Ren and Stimpy, and I mean, I haven't really watched them much as an adult, not to get too sidetracked here, but certain episodes you remember more than others, and like the family bath, wasn't that one banned after like one airing?
Yeah. Oh, there was a lot of them that should have. I mean, by today's standards, they would totally never even consider showing on TV. But it was great. I mean, they took them seriously. It wasn't just sugar-coated. Blah. I don't know.
Yeah. I had a
direct.
Farted. Yeah, Stimpy had like a whoopee cushion inside him, so.
Oh yeah. But now it's cool. Like I'm not done with it yet, but I've been watching Over the Garden Wall, which is amazing and very dark but like lighthearted at the same time, where it won't, I think, scare every child. But there's definitely skeletons popping up out of the ground next to the main characters, but they're so friendly, so it's kind of like, okay. But it's super creepy. It's fantastic. But it's like Miyazaki creepy, I feel. So it's kind of that sweet spot, I think, where it won't scar anybody, but you kind of wonder, like, I don't know. It's a cool thing to see, that fine line, I guess. Which is, I would love to eventually do a book like that at some point. Hopefully. It's kind of
interestingly enough, coming full circle with a thought that I had earlier was Brett Hal Quist is actually the illustrator who did the series of Fortunate Events books that your art tends to remind me of it at times, and he actually is the artist who took over on those kids books, those horror kids books.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That's just a random weird coincidental thing that happened to be brought up.
That's awesome. I'll definitely have to check those out now. That sounds so cool.
Now, we kind of touched on this a little, but we also wanted to give you a chance to plug what you're working on right now and what's coming up with, what you're allowed to talk about, what's coming up that you're working on.
Yeah, definitely more pony covers. I've got a gem cover coming up soon that I can't really say when, I don't think. But as far as like interior covers, I have a Ghostbusters one-page story coming out in the annual. It's written by Eric Burnham, who's one of the he's like the regular artist on the series. And me and him are pretty, like, we're friends, and he's a super sweetie, and he knows I like Janine, so it's a Janine story. It's really cute. It's one page in there. It's a little backup story, and that actually comes out the same day as the tarot cards, so it'll be a pretty rad day. But yeah, I have some kids books in mind that I want to do, either being on the creepy side or on the, you know, more friendly kids book side. I have a ghost story I want to do that'll be more of a, you know, young adult to adult story in mind. This is all stuff that I'm really hoping for, but, you know, you never know how long things will take until you start diving into them. But one thing that is definitely happening is Vivek Tiwari, who did the Fifth Beatle, who is one of the main people working on the Fifth Beatle. Me and him are working on a young adult novel that I'll be doing illustrations for. Yeah, I've got a couple art books in mind that I want to put together. Like, I'm gearing up for a really book-heavy year for a lot of personal projects. And because of that, I'm going to be kind of toning back on conventions. I did 21 this year, and it is an exhaustion that I have never felt before.
Yeah, I saw you mention on your Facebook page that you had done 21 this year, and I was going to ask, you know, obviously if you planned, and you mentioned planning on scaling it back, how many do you think you're going to get to next year, and do you think you're going to make it out to the Motor City again?
I am planning on 10 next year. It's probably going to be more than that. Like, I'm setting the number back a little bit only because I know I will probably still end up doing 15 because I get talked into things, and there's so many people I like to see. And
if you set the bar low, you won't feel bad at yourself about exceeding it greatly.
Totally. But yeah, I'm going to shoot for Motor City again. They really are amazing with taking care of their artists, and the one thing I love about that show is not only the people that run it, but, like, they will let artists into the green room. You know, like, we like to eat too. It's kind of cool when we're invited to go, you know, grab some chili, which they always have the most amazing chili.
That's a random item.
Right? Yeah.
That's a random item. You like the chili.
Yeah, they're known for their chili in their green room.
Yeah, everyone comes to Detroit for the chili.
Totally. Or that one person represents the chili industry in Detroit really well. But yeah, it was crazy. I ended up running into Billy Boyd and got to talk to him, and I'm like, ugh.
He's very nice.
He's super nice, and he could just read the phone book in front of me all day. Like, Scottish accents are my kryptonite. So
it was kind of funny when I talked to Billy Boyd, and so he was telling me about I believe, gosh, what was the name of his band, Beefcake.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, he's telling me, you know, I asked him about his band, and his Beefcake, like a cake for bees, and I was so happy to just hear him talk about it because his accent is delightful. But
oh my gosh,
he's like, yeah, I'm a singer and I play instruments and I'm an actor, and I was like, yeah, just steal all the talent, Billy Boyd.
Yeah,
don't leave any for the rest of us.
Right. He's an incredible singer, and that was just really cool to get to talk to him, and like that never happens. Like, a lot of conventions, they'll kind of keep the green room for the super celebrities and all the TV celebrities, but, you know, a lot of the artists too, like, we're invited as guests as well, and a lot of the times some of these artists are working on series that these actors are portraying, you know, like, we're kind of the basement, the foundation of their property. And
sure,
you know.
Sure, you're working on Gem. I mean, they just made a Gem movie, granted it did horribly, and that wasn't your fault in any way.
Advertise it too. I mean, I did not see a single TV spot, and they're wondering why it bombed.
The marketing for that movie was terrible. The trailer really did a huge disservice to that movie. Like, I saw it, and, you know, I'm very set in my ways with Gem, and I was pleasantly surprised. You know, it's not my favorite movie in the entire world, but it wasn't bad, you know. But the trailer was awful. The trailer just totally screwed the whole movie over. So their marketing just, I think they shot themselves in the foot with that one. But yeah, if anybody does go see it, stay till after the credits, because if there ever were to be a sequel, it would probably be pretty awesome. Just probably won't happen, but they saved all the cool parts for that last little bit.
So any other great '80s icons other than My Little Pony and Gem that you desire to work on? Well, you did Ghostbusters, as you mentioned, and
Yeah.
Rambo.
Rambo.
I think I could take on a pretty sensitive side of Rambo.
He had a cartoon. Seriously, look up the intro on YouTube. It's
RoboCop, the cartoon. She's gonna do RoboCop art as well.
Oh man, that'd be so rad. I would love. It's not '80s, but it is another childhood dream to work on something with Jurassic Park at some point. So I'm gonna be doing.
You got a little taste. You got the taste of the blood, that dinosaur blood in your mouth. You want more?
Oh yeah. They even called me the dinosaur girl at Hasbro, and it was like, cool. I'm gonna work on all the dinosaurs, and it's gonna be great. And this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And then
They probably thought it was an insult, and you were like the happiest person in the world to be called the dinosaur girl.
It made my day. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I had a pretty huge love for the dinosaurs as a kid as well.
Oh yeah, I've got kind of a huge collection of the Papo figures. Are amazing. The little French, pretty much direct rip-offs from the Jurassic Park designs, but they are these really cool rubber dinosaur just sitting on a shelf thing right now. Anyway, yeah, Gem was my other huge bucket list, wish list sort of thing. So
I'm thinking She-Ra.
She-Ra would be rad. Actually, me and Hope Nicholson, who's an amazing person, she works on a lot of really cool projects as well. I would follow her on Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and everything. But me and her were joking around about doing a Lady Lovely Locks sort of thing, like Pitch, which was a toy I had when I was little. And it's pretty much these girls with beautiful princess dresses, and then they have pretty much squirrels living in their hair with magical rainbow tails, and it sounds crazy and terrifying, but these were like little magical animals that were their jewelry, pretty much. So it's very strange, but it was a thing. So that would
Gummy bears was a thing, bears in the forest who drank magical juice and they became bouncy. Go figure. The 80s were really strange.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are plenty of icons like imagine if we could see Sarah's take on Mac tonight or something like that.
Man. That'd be so rad.
Oh man, the California Raisins. That's got to come back.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be pretty rad. I know they already did a Bill and Ted comic, which is amazing. So I wish I could have been able to do something with that, because that's one of my favorite movies forever.
I actually rewatched those recently, and those hold up surprisingly well.
Oh.
I like that the future is ludicrously the future. It is in no way, 2015 Marty McFly future.
Yeah, totally. That's actually one I've been trying to beg some of the editors at IDWs to work on something for Back to the Future too, because that's like one of my other favorite movies, and that does fall within the '80s realm. So yeah, there's that. I'll see. You don't
want to pigeonhole yourself, dinosaur girl.
I know. I'm just trying to stretch out a little bit. I might do like some sweet just completely go off the rails and get a really realistic style and do some like World War II nonfiction biographical epic at some point. Just confuse everyone.
A historical epic?
Oh yeah. Like some really obscure. I don't even know.
You're gonna do art for the Iliad?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll say like, hey, Sarah, what's your next project? Oh, it's about Churchill's life between wars.
Oh, totally. It's cool. It's the hidden life of Isaac Newton. Whatever.
or it's like revisionist or something, and Churchill's with dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? It could be anything. If I get way too tired to think straight, some story might pop out of that.
So it's getting to the end of the year, and I know that there's so many holidays that probably people like yourself are spending time with family and things like that. But we wanted to ask about upcoming con appearances so that fans could maybe get an idea of if you'll be in their area in the next few months or so.
Sure. Yeah. I know I'm going to be at Emerald City. I'm definitely going to be at New Orleans Comic Con, which is going to be the first one of the year, and that's January 8th and 9th, or 7th and 8th, the second week of January, or the first week of January. Anyway, Wizard World New Orleans. I'll be at that one. I love New Orleans, so that one I didn't have to really have my arm twisted on. But yeah, Emerald City, C2E2, New York. I'm planning on a lot of the bigger ones, but Motor City I'm going to try to shoot for too. But I'll add them as they kind of pop up. My website has my full list, and right now it just has New Orleans as a for sure. I got to update that. But I'll be at Acme Comics for Free Comic Book Day in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I actually, just today, I can't say what comic it's for, but I'll be doing a Free Comic Book Day cover for something super awesome.
So you're a local Californian, so the travel has to be pretty crazy, I would imagine.
Now it is. I mean, I'm originally from New Hampshire, so now I'm kind of getting to experience a lot more West Coast shows. I'm only a local as of a couple of years ago, because technically I was in Portland, and I've only been here for 2 months in California, which is nice. No snow is happening here in the next month.
It is the most miserable. You know, we've had like an unseasonably warm weather in the Metro Detroit area until literally this week, when it just dropped to 50 and became rainy and windy and is miserable.
Oh yeah. It was Rhode Island Comic Con. It was weird how warm it was. Even in Rhode Island, it was like 70 degrees last weekend, and then it just dropped.
We like that here in early November, but yeah, we don't have too much longer before Detroit turns into Norway, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New Hampshire, so I've dealt with my fair share of snow. I've probably shoveled more feet of snow than how tall most buildings are. Gosh, I'm just done with it. Like, I like watching it, but it's dealing with it afterwards. It's not so great. But
that's the decent thing about living in an apartment, is someone else does it for you.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
God bless no land maintenance. So we're getting towards the end of the show, and we always give our guests due diligence and a chance to kind of pimp their wares in various websites. And I know you have your, I believe it's just sararichard.com. Is it? Is your website?
Yeah. So Sara Richard, SARARICHARD. I've had my name spelled so many different ways that.
Yes, it is wrong on the internet a lot.
Yeah, that was pretty much me growing up. Like any good job, you read a book certificate I got in 2nd grade was always, Sarah with an H or Richards with an S or anything like that. Anyway, roundabout. But yeah, I have links on my homepage for my Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, my Facebook fan page, and I also have a link to my kind of high fashion cosplay designs that I was doing for a little while. I'm going to try to get back on those, doing those every Sunday. Just kind of, I love fashion design, so I wanted to kind of put a fashion-y spin on certain characters. So there's like Rocket and Groot in like done at like not those characters, but like girls wearing a dress that is a Groot dress, or and she's paired with a girl wearing like a Rocket outfit. So I don't know, it was just kind of a project I was working on, but that link is on there as well. Links to my store. I have a store on Store Envy and Society 6, which I got to update with some new stuff. But the Store Envy one, I have like, I'll sell my original pony covers. I still have a few of those on there right now. The tarot cards, I will be selling originals for all those originals very soon, probably on the 25th when the set gets released. That way I know I'm not like disclosing anything that I shouldn't. So on the 25th I'll be selling the original paintings for most of the cards through Comic Art House, which is who I'm repped through. But I'll have a link to all that on all my social media, on my Facebook, on my webpage too. So if anybody's interested in those, they'll totally be able to find where it's at. And like, I'll make some announcements beforehand, so it's not a huge surprise. But yeah, my store on there has, sketches, like old sketches, prints. I have a charity print right now where I donate some money towards animal welfare charities. It's based on Zeus the Blind Owl, because he's amazing, he's adorable, and $5 from each print sale goes to charity. So that's on my store as well. Yeah, and then I have my list of conventions, so you can come say hey in person, and it'll be cool.
Yeah, I didn't really get to say that Yeah, I really hope you get to make it out to the Motor City convention in May. Yeah, this one they did this year was so fantastic. And we got to meet a lot of great comic book artists and actors, and scored a few interviews there as well. And I think they pulled in 50,000 people this year or something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely one of their biggest years.
It just gets exponentially bigger each year, and I think now, attendance-wise, it's probably in the top dozen or so comic book conventions on the continent. So it's time for Marvel and DC to start showing up and doing panels and announcements at our con. Because there's definitely smaller cons they show up to. They need to start coming to Detroit.
Yeah, I think if I know that IDW listens to a lot of fan requests as well, and we'll take that into consideration if people ask for it. But yeah, Marvel and DC, I bet if enough people are like, hey, we're real serious about you coming out, it'd be super sweet. I mean, maybe they'd consider it. I don't know, because they're so big, like how they deal with that. But yeah, Motor City is super cool. I'm gonna do my best to get out there, unless I have some crazy deadline that for some reason I am chained to my desk. I'll do my best. And yeah.
Well, I think it's about time to wrap it up. Eric, any last thoughts, questions, interests?
Not really. I was just going to ask Sarah if she has any closing words for our listeners, and again, thank her for being on our show.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you guys so much for having me. I enjoy talking to people. I work at in my studio by myself, so it's nice to talk to other human beings.
Yeah, you're always welcome to return to the show in the future as well.
Oh, sweet. Just to be like, hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, guys?
I just need to talk to somebody, please.
So what do you think of, actually I have one quick question, just because you mentioned you were a gigantic lover of dinosaurs and Jurassic Park. What did you think of the Jurassic World?
Oh my god, I loved it. It was amazing. It was everything I wanted. I am fine with it being as inaccurate as it is. I know that's what a lot of people were totally whining about, but
What the dinosaur inaccuracies?
Yeah, just like, oh, that's not a mosquito, that's a cane fly, and it's like, dude, like Jurassic Park has never been accurate, and in that movie, they really succinctly summed up why. They're just like, well, these would all look way different if they were actually those dinosaurs, but
yeah, I thought that they shut up the naysayers and with that line alone.
Super quick, and like I was always, one of those. Oh, those aren't Velociraptors; they're Deinonychus. But I'm cool with it because they look
right. Yeah, like, that's my favorite dinosaur.
Yeah. So I was totally fine with it. I know I wish there could have been some newer dinosaurs, but I did like the callback of the why am I blanking on the name? The crazy T-Rex, the white one, the albino like camouflagey one. What was it called?
Right. Whose name was really crazy and I can't remember. It was like Imperiosaurus or something like that.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm blanking on it right now. But to have that be camouflage for that one little bit, that's what I wanted to happen. Like that was the one thing going in. I'm like, there has to be a camouflage dinosaur in there, because in the book they had some Carnotaurus. The best scene of the Jurassic Park book for me is the people being hunted by two camouflaged Carnotaurus, and I thought that was so cool. And I totally got why maybe back in '93 they couldn't really pull it off, but this was just for that like little second where it's like, oh crap, he's in here, he's camouflaged.
Those movies hold up really, really well though. Even for '93, those effects were spectacular.
Oh, totally.
So let's not forget the greatest dinosaur movie of all time, Super Mario Brothers.
Oh my god! Of course.
The horrors of the '80s.
Yeah,
that was really the '90s.
And the '90s, yeah, exactly. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being on. I don't want to cut you short, but I also don't want to keep you longer than we had intended.
No worries. Yeah, just going to be working on that free comic book day cover thing that you'll see soon.
Cough, cough, cough.
Cough. Which I'll announce as soon as I can, for sure. So definitely everybody check out my social media, follow me on all that, and I post like work in progress pictures when I can.
Unless Bleeding Cool beats you to it.
Oh, yeah. So who knows?
And again, that's what? Sara Richard, SARA Richard without an S.com.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. And you have links to all your other sites. Well, Eric, why don't you pimp our stuff and then I'll close this out.
All right. As usual, I will plug our sites as I do at the end of an episode. For all the latest Batman news throughout all forms of media, visit darkknightnews.com, and you can also catch our recent coverage of Comic-Con, a convention that focused on women in the comic book industry we attended last weekend. And coming up early next week, I will be posting an interview with Nancy Collins of she did some Batman, but she's mostly well known for Swamp Thing and Vampirella, so everyone can look forward to that interview soon. And then for all your DC Comics news, again, various forms of media, check out dccomicsnews.com. And then don't forget, for all of our previous episodes of the podcast, reviews of Archie and Dark Circle titles, and miscellaneous news here and there, check out our blog site, multiverseentertainment.wordpress.com. And although it's not affiliated with this podcast, I recently started writing for WeGotThisCovered.com, and I highly recommend checking out that site. It's got this great news for movie, TV, Blu-ray, video games, even dance music. I obviously don't write for that section because I think longtime fans know what a metalhead I am, even though I hang out at a goth industrial bar on a Tuesday night. But and then don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/apodcastforallseasons. So until next time, thanks for listening and goodbye.
Whew, that is a big old mouthful. Sara Richard, thank you so much. You were a very gracious and lovely guest. We appreciate having you on. Say your goodbyes, and we'll close it out.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Have a good night, guys. Thanks for joining us.